Mimi nataka niwaambie, muache kukwama kuangalia wheelbarrow. Nyuma ya wheelbarrow kuna economic model inaitwa bottom up, ambayo itawezesha mwananchi mwenye hana kazi apate kazi.
Ametuambia bottom up itaangazia mambo ya potatoes, ambayo ndio kitu ambayo sisi tunalima hapa.
Tunawaambia sisi tumejipanga kama mahasla, tukipanga uchumi ya mwananchi wa kawaida kwanza.
Ukichukua chupa ya maji na useme bottoms up na uweke chupa namna hii, sio ni kusema maliza kabisa? If you did this and you say bottoms up, this is the bottom. Mtu anameza kila kitu. Na mwananchi atapata nini? And how are you going to finance this economy? Ya kusema bottoms up.
All right, that is Musalia Mudavadi's interpretation of the bottom-up approach of the economy. But you have to say here that the information has been quite scanty on what that exactly means and the approach that will be on the approach of the economic transformation. I bet that the two of you may know better what that is. You'll be telling us about that. But SG Sifuna, so when this is going on, we're at a time that people are still talking about who they are going to work with, not necessarily on the agenda. Is it true that you're very keen on getting at least 40% of the Central Kenya region, but what are you selling to Kenyans?
Yeah, that is a very good question, but please allow me to respond to some of the things that my brothers have said. First, Mheshimiwa Koech, you know, it is a bit disappointing for you to not see the opportunity in the committee that you are in. We are in the midst of the Olympics, and by many accounts, the bulk of the Kenyan team is from your community. We are very proud of you as you bring a lot of pride to the country. I see an opportunity there. If the sports committee was committed to some of the promises you made, complete the stadium in Kamarin for your people to practice there and hone their skills and to develop more talent, then you would have done service. There's a very interesting report in the Standard there, Sam, and it talks about what politics has become. It has become very transactional, and that leaders forget why they are elected immediately they get there. That it is about making money. That is where you hear phrases such as powerful committee. Powerful committee does not mean a committee that gives him opportunity to serve his people. No. Powerful committee means that is where the meat is. So he doesn't see a lot of opportunity there in the sports committee as opposed to defense. Then on this question of political dishonesty, I don't think Mwaura is in any position to discuss dishonesty. He knows he was de-whipped from his party because of political infidelity. It is the law, Mwaura, that when you are elected or nominated on a party, you stick with that party. You were de-whipped from your party because of infidelity. And it is the law. It is not Murade who wrote the law on discipline in political parties. You are members of parliament. If you feel that the current law is very restrictive, go and bring an amendment to the Political Parties Act and remove the provision that requires you to stay faithful to the party that you were elected on. Coming to your question, it is very good, Sam, that people are noting that we want to hear specifics of the proposals that people are making to the electorate. When you hear somebody saying bottoms up will bring jobs to people, you don't just take what he's saying for it. You have to ask him, how are you going to do it? We in the ODM party, and you have seen this consistently, we are not focused on who is going to run for president. We are looking to elaborate and to lay out our policy position on every facet of Kenyan life. Yesterday you saw Raila put out his vision for the civil service, and it has details of the how. If you go back to reports of the NCIC over the past few years, they pointed out some of the issues that he brought out on nepotism, tribalism, and favoritism within the civil service. It is not something he has just come up with. It is a problem that has existed. Now, how do we address it? We inject meritocracy into the civil service. We want to create a clear path of progression for people who are employed in civil service, and they know that if they put in the work, they have the opportunity to grow within the civil service, as opposed to what is happening currently. That is what we are selling to Kenyans, and we are not going to package a message for a region. because this dichotomy that somehow the hunger that somebody feels in Central is different from the hunger that someone feels in Western Kenya, it is artificial. We are all in the same boat. The needs of the parent whose child has to go to school tomorrow in Central Kenya are the very same ones that a parent in Turkana is facing. So we need to have a broad-based approach where we provide solutions to the problems that face us as a nation, as opposed to crafting proposals to hook 40% of a certain region. For me, as SG of ODM, I can tell you that we have gone into all these elections with Raila Odinga as our candidate, looking for 100% of the vote in Central. Even now, nobody should lie to you that we want a fraction of the vote. We want all the vote, because why would you want a fraction if it is possible through your policies and your programs to have harvest all the 100%. So we will be looking at pitching to Kenyans every day. You saw the pitch our party leader put out on infrastructure development in rural areas and urbanization in rural areas to ensure that rural areas and rural life also works for everyone. If it is agriculture, you have to have solutions that encourage Kenyans to even participate in agriculture, that there are enough returns from coffee and tea, from sugarcane and so on and so forth, to dissuade people from this thinking that you can only make it in Nairobi. You have to put thinking into how you develop infrastructure such as roads and even electricity. You have seen, I come from Western Kenya, just this recent evacuation of power from Olkaria to Kisumu. It has changed lives in Bungoma, because there's a difference. You going to a hut somewhere in Bungoma and connecting power, and that power is unavailable for the better part of the week, or it's too expensive that people have to turn it off all the time, and they can only afford to have one light on in a period of 24 hours. So we are saying we require big thinking. At that level, we require big thinking. Economic thinking is not something that you just throw around phrases and you assume that people will vote for you.
And Senator Mora, two parts of the question. First, I feel uncomfortable asking you this, but let me just ask, but is UDA seeking to form any alliances ahead of 2022? And secondly, this bottom-up economic model, what is the simplified version that really says the strategies that you're going to deploy to ensure that truly the rural economy is well entrenched and people are able to make a living out of it?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sam, because of this question. And I must welcome ODM to this economic conversation, because they have finally decided that they are not going to sell TBIM and Tialala to the people. They are going to sell, the economic model. But theirs is still trickle down. And just to dissuade the thinking of Musalia Mudavadi, when you take one for the road, you think when you talk about bottom-up, it's about a bottle and what you drink. That's really uncalled for. When you talk about bottom-up, we talk about the bottom millions and providing with them a million possibilities of rising up to become whatever it is that they would want to be, rather than having big business that then take the lion's share and then they share the crumbs. That is the difference of our approach. So where do you start? You start climbing a tree from below up. But to be more specific, Sam, I want to say and to reiterate that Kenya is actually a hustler's nation, because we have 16 million people who live below the poverty line, first, and then we have about 15 million businesses. 6 of them that are a little bit organized, the rest of them are daily hustles, basically. So the first thing is housing, really. Housing has the potential of providing lots of jobs for the plumbers, the suppliers of materials and whatever. It has not worked well under the Big Four. That is a very critical aspect that we would want to have within the bottom-up economic model, and especially even for land reconsolidation, so that then you have land use management. So you have people, and you segment it into 3 ways. You have social housing for the poorest of the poor. You have low-cost housing for those who are earning 15,000 or so that you actually, rent to own. And then, of course, the market rate, where you have the middle income. And it's a very small market, about 30,000 mortgages. And number 2 is the issue of the economic empowerment. And the first thing that you do is to increase total factor productivity, so that if you have actually one coffee tree, instead of it giving you 1 kilogram or 2, you find ways of increasing it to about 10. If you have a cow that is weighing about 80 kilograms. You can actually make it, fatten to actually even 150. And also the leather industry, because we actually throw, away the hides and skins to have a robust one. And then value chain addition. If you look at the way in which we segment our products, we actually produce raw materials. We do not process them. And yet, this is a very small segment. Value addition is actually 15% only. The other, 85% is left to other people to make money out of our raw materials. And that is something that we'd want to have, and also specialize county by county or region by region, so that you do not have market saturation in terms of supplies and demand. Another issue that is also very critical is access to credit. These, the bottom millions of businesses, are getting monies from Shylocks, up to 120%, and it looks little. But if you get every day, cumulatively, it becomes extremely expensive. How do you incentivize, coming up with a special fund, for example, constituency-based, and we are proposing about 100 million to begin with, and learning from Uwezo Fund and Youth Fund and other funds that have existed, so that then you remove the bottlenecks around the requirement for paperwork and what have you, so that you incentivize the bottom millions. And then the middle level, you actually remove the issue of that the banks prefer to lend to government, who end up misusing this money, because government sometimes is not really the business, and that money is stolen and recapitalized through private enterprises that win the tender. Basically free money.
Senator Mora, I'm not an economic student, but when you say bottom-up approach, not trickle down, and then you tell us that you're going to come up with a fund at the constituency level, I'm just wondering how different that is from Youth Fund, Uwezo Fund, Women Enterprise Fund. And secondly, on housing, how different is it from the universal, the Big Four agenda?
Yeah. No, those ones have not worked. Believe you me, they have not worked. Because we talk about the Uwezo Fund, and Nelson is here, he can give more details. The money is very little. And then the requirements are so dire that people actually shy away from taking these funds. So we are accepting some that we are not starting from a clean slate. We have actually tried to implement this. It has not worked very well. But then we would want to take the best practices from it, increase the resources. Imagine if you had 100 million, that's almost equivalent, if not more, per constituency, and it's a revolving fund that actually doesn't get depleted because actually you repay. You get to meet the needs of so many small businesses, right? And then on the other hand, you ensure that right now Kenyans are finding it extremely difficult to get loans from these big banks, because like last year alone.
So how will that change in September 2022 if UDA wins the presidency? Access to loans.
That's exactly what I'm explaining, that we have actually learned, first and foremost, is to avail the money. The money, for example, is not there, okay, currently. So you avail by reallocating this money from other government priorities so that you have it, at the constituency level.
If you're to look
on
at
the other hand,
just hold on. If you're to look at the budget of 2021, 2022, where are you seeing that money that you'll shift from this vote to this?
I have been a vice chairman of Finance and Budget Committee of the Senate. There are so many areas that are poorly and overfunded, like infrastructural projects. You find a road that is supposed to be constructed at 20, 30 million per kilometer. It's up to 80 million. Some people actually budget to steal. And then they take that money out of their stolen money, and they reinvest into their private businesses. And also remember, this money is borrowed. The banks have have lent government up to 900 billion last financial year, therefore crowding out local investors. That is the money you and I would have gone to borrow some if it was availed to us at our local bank. So how do you disincentivize, for example, and this is about fiscal discipline and restructuring, and budget restructuring and fiscal consolidation, yeah? So that then you actually, either on one part, you have long-term loans, not those short-term commercial ones, and so that then you reduce the appetite of government for loans. And the desire is, that if then you incentivize the bottom millions, you will be able to assist the graduation of informal businesses into formal ones, and therefore increase the tax base.
Okay, all right.
That enables you, sir.
Just hold on. Let's get clarity from Honorable Koech here. If you share the views of Senator Mwaura, he says that you disincentivize to make sure that the government's borrowing in the domestic market is no longer attractive so that that money is available for Mwananchi. How is that possible in September of 2022 at a time that you know the government has responsibilities, you have obligations to pay foreign debt as well as domestic debt, and so you still have to continue sort of borrowing? How does that change in a month's time?
I think what Senator Maura is simply saying, and I don't want to use a lot of economic terms to describe something very simple. Bottom up is pesa mfukoni, in simple terms. How to achieve that then is, for instance, when the Deputy President says that he will inject 100 million to every constituency, I'll give you the model of Uwezo Fund and how it works, at least for now. So like in my constituency, I got 12 million last year for Uwezo Fund, which was a spillover from the people who had paid and some were not paid from the former Member of Parliament. So what you simply do, and the rule there is that you pick on the groups that exist and you give them something. That money is normally very minimal. It's about between 100,000 to 300,000. Some can even go up to 1 million, depending on their repayment plan. Now, what happens with such groupings, however, is that many of them take the money and never comes back. So I think this new model is to say, today, if you have, for instance, in my constituency, 500 mamambogas, then have a kitty of 100 million and invite all of them. Have a plan, lower the loans, and each of them to get something to improve on their businesses. That is how simple it is. You don't have any other magic. And the wisdom of that is that so much of our discussion has been, I don't know, GDP against what, so much science that does not work. Why can't we just make it very simple and say, let the person on the ground be empowered? Today, when I go home in the evening, I want to have enough vegetables from Mambamboga across the road, and she has enough stock for that day, and she can go home with something. The same thing with the Boda Boda rider, the same thing with the people who are washing our vehicles, and that is exactly what the model is. Okay. So on how to still structure and achieve that is something that is still being worked on. But that is as simple as it is.
Work in progress, you say.
Yeah.
But Governor, you've managed the government.
And before you go there, I just needed to correct something that Honorable Sifuna did mention, that I seem to have underscored the importance of subcommittees in Parliament. I did not. I simply say that we must be aligned to our manifesto. Our manifesto as Jubilee is totally different from ODM manifesto. So I expect someone who is probably in the finance committee.
Though it's true, you said defense committee was powerful, sports is not. No,
I'm not saying that. Sports, I am saying we have been lumped there. Members from the same community,
said it.
More than 11 members of the same community, i.e. in one committee. It is not proper.
Honorable Koech, you said it. Okay. Governor Lee Kinyanjui, you've run a government, but also there's a time you were in the ministry.
Yes.
And what works? What doesn't work with all the models, the proposals that are coming through, and if you had to reflect on what the two gentlemen are saying?
I think first, it is good to be very wary of new terminologies that come just before an election. Because, one, you know, this bottoms-up approach is actually in the government of Kenya's strategy for revival of small and medium enterprises. And it is for this reason that all these funds we are talking about, the Uwezo Fund, the Youth Fund, they were formed as a result of the realization to align those groups at the bottom there. Two, you have seen in the last 5 years, the government has started a very aggressive program. And you recall the president actually going up to China to open markets for avocado so that our farmer down there can grow that and sell. Opening the markets is part of facilitating the people who are at the lowest level. So I want to confirm that the bottoms-up strategy is a GOK, Government of Kenya strategy. It has worked, and it has worked through empowerment and structuring the markets so that the farmers and the workers, even when you look at, for example, the Big Four, when the president says we want to do, say, 1 million houses for Kenyans, who will be empowered? Is it not the fundis? Is it not the plumbers? Is it not the people who will be painting those houses? The Juakali people who will be building those doors and frames and all those artisans who are going to work within that enterprise? So the point is this. people, you cannot empower the bottom without looking at where will they work, where will they take the commodities, where is the market. So opening up of market, introduction of new crops. If you look at the Chinese market, for example, the pork they consume in a year, if we even got 0.01%, and that's what the government has been trying to do. The president has gone, even during very difficult times, including times like this for the COVID, to try and open those markets. So I think it's also good that we be honest on that matter. Number two, immediately after an election, we, the political class, me included and my brothers here, embark on campaigns for the next election. That hurts our tourism. That hurts our agriculture. That hurts all our businesses. Because everybody imagines the country is at war. Because everybody, for me to win, I have to paint the other person in bad light. So again, the investors would have come to put their money, invest in 3,000 houses, affordable housing and all that. They perceive that environment as being unstable, therefore unattractive, and they don't come. So again, you end up hurting the same painter. You end up hurting those people you are now saying you're going to come and help. So I think we must agree that if we are to move forward, this continuous and permanent politicking, and that's why the president said, immediately after the election, let 2021 come, we shall do the politics. These are the years. The energy we have used to divide each other, if it had gone towards encouraging our young people, encouraging them to go into agribusiness, to go into commercial farming and all these other things, I want to assure you that the conversation would be far. Therefore, I'm also trying to say, we are also partly responsible for creation of that desperate society. We cannot create a society where everybody wakes up and thinks that everything has failed. A leader's first role in any place is to create hope. Create hope, if it's that Weather Fund, the budgets committee in parliament. If we had funded these institutions, charged with the responsibility of creating hope, giving our young people money and training them, I want to assure you would be very fast. So I think it's also not fair for us to create a community of hopelessness and then now come as a messiah to build them up.
But Governor, is it true that there are several millions of Kenyans that are hurting because of the government's policies?
I think we also need to be honest.
Or where is the problem? Because truly there's a challenge in the economics of Wananchi. Or you don't see it?
I think let's agree. The world over today, there's a pandemic that is now well into its second year. So when you're looking at economics, you have also to compare with like nations at a similar time and all that. And I want to also confirm, Maura did say that the government shouldn't borrow locally. That's true. And that's why the Eurobond was created, so that you go and borrow outside. And you see now, when you go and borrow outside, the same politicians, because the government doesn't want to borrow from its banks, because you want that money to go to the ordinary Wanjiko. You do not want to compete with Wanjiko, who has gone to borrow 10,000. So the government decides to go and borrow outside. Then the same politicians create a lot of noise to portray like borrowing is bad. But I also want to confirm, the World Bank and all these other lenders would not give you money if they thought you would not be able to pay. So it's like any other bank. You won't just walk and they give you money. So I think the point you're trying to say is that we need an honest conversation. And if there's any economic model we want to propose, I don't think we can propose it in funerals and public rallies. Let us have a serious conversation on this is what we've done so far. So we cannot take one thing and just run with it without looking at the dynamics.
Okay.
And I want to remind you that in Zimbabwe, there was a policy brought just before an election on let's give the Nini land, the freedom fighters land. We all know what happened thereafter, because some of these policies are not well thought out. And I think whoever wins, the truth is, whatever policies you bring affect all of us, whether we're in that government or not.
Okay, he has not responded to my question whether truly there are people that are hurting in this country. Are they there? And
they are
what
there.
is the solution?
That he has said people are hurting. Some. We are also part of that people who are hurting. It's not as if we are immune or, you know, from the ravages of the economy. I just wanted to say a few things. First of all, it is clear. You can see that when an idea is not yours originally, you will struggle even explaining it. You can see what the difficulty that my brother Maura is going through, trying to tell us the how. I want to hazard a guess that these people in Tangatanga have never actually spoken to an actual Mamamboga. They have never asked an actual Mamamboga, what do you need to do your business? Because they, in their mind, you know, Maura will show up with aprons emblazoned with with a wheelbarrow and give mama mbogas in a market and take pictures and say they have solved the problem of a mama mboga. The mama mboga who wakes up earlier than you do, Maura, because you were late to this show, she has to go to Marikiti by 5 a.m. to wait for mboga that is coming from up country. She trades in mboga. So how does that mboga get to her? A government that sits somewhere and plans an irrigation scheme is thinking about the mama mboga to produce the mboga down there for the mboga to get to her. We have cases of mangoes overproduced in, Elgeyo Marakwet. We saw photos in the newspaper of these mangoes rotting on a road. Because this bottoms up from our friends. Instead of, for instance, building that stadium that I've challenged them to build, so that the young talent can come up. Those runners make more money than we do, and the government has done nothing for them. They wake up and run on bad roads, but they have the talent. What you need to do is to help them. If Mheshimiwa Koech, you build the dam in Kimorer, then now you call for a harambe to help these young people to buy fishing cages, to help them to buy boats, to do tourism on the lake that is a result of your construction of a dam. That is bottoms up. They can be able to help themselves to rise up. But you disappear the entire dam. It is not there. It is gone. One person then comes back with those millions to say, now we are going to do a harambe to raise the profiles and the support of these young people. It is dishonesty. Number two, we have a system of sending money to the grassroots. It's a wonderful system. It's called devolution. Governor here has a fund to be able to build markets for that mama mboga that you talk about to leave the roadside. She needs to thrive in an environment that is dignified. We were proposing an increase of money to governors like Lee so that he can build more markets and ensure that he is able to accommodate all the mama mbogas in Nakuru County. But the people who opposed those very grand plans are here telling us about bottoms-up approach. We had a proposal to have a fund specifically for the Article 43 rights, Sam. This mama mboga needs access to water. You are not going to be able to sell vegetables without water. We want to create a fund to be able to provide water, to provide a school for her children, under the rights to education, to provide health care so that when she's unwell, she can be able to reach a dispensary. When you are talking about thinking about the small person, these are the things that you need to think about. We are to discuss how you reduce the cost of production. The saloonist, if you ask her, what is the biggest cost here? She will tell you, when I put my clients in the dryer, stima inaenda sana. The cost of electricity is too high. How do you address the cost of electricity? Those are the things we need to talk about. How do you reduce taxes? Taxes are a result of the borrowing that we're talking about. Borrowing in itself is not bad, but what are you borrowing to do? We have, by many accounts, Governor, been unable to be told what the Eurobond money went to. The Auditor General himself said he was unable to trace specific programs that the money was utilized in. The biggest problem, and this is the elephant in the room, is corruption. If by the President's own admission we are hemorrhaging 2 billion shillings a day in terms of corruption, then we must address the elephant in the room. When we proposed to increase the money to devolution by at least 25%, we were told even the 15% now, we can't do it. Where are you going to get the extra money to add to what you're proposing? Now they're telling us somehow money can be reallocated from Sijui where to go into constituencies. We have the Constituency Development Fund, which, by the way, was at one point even declared unconstitutional. So they want to tell us that they are going to create another fund. And it is the same amount, 100 million shillings to every constituency. Because they have this mentality that the people down there, all they need is a harambes and donations. And in fact, this is what this report is talking about, Sam. And I wish you would focus on it. It says that we have politics where people don't compete on ideas. They compete on spending. And because it is very expensive when you compete on spending, how many harambes is Sifuna able to do? How many churches has he been able to build? Because you are constantly in that cycle of donations, you have to also replenish your supply. You have to replenish your supply, and that supply has to come from somewhere, which is why the report concludes this is the basis of all the corruption in this country, the culture we have. So let us change that paradigm shift. I want to challenge these friends of ours. I know they don't respect the COVID protocols. I can see they are holding rallies. Next time, please give the microphone to an actual mama mboga. And you people sit down and take notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
As just Funa, I'll give you an opportunity to respond, Zakamora, because there was a direct attack there. But as we do that, there's that story on page 4 of the Standard, how Kenya's politics risks being overrun by big money. That's the story that SG Sifuna has been referring to, including the cost of running for different seats. For Senate, 35.5 billion shillings is what it may cost you. 22.8 million shillings is what it may cost you to run for a woman representative seat. 18.2 million for a member of parliament, 3.1 million for an MCA, and an amount that on average elected MPs spend monthly is 780,000 shillings. So you can imagine if you had to run for office, how much you would need to cough. How do they get this money? How do they recover is a question that still lingers. Let's now switch gears and listen to a conversation that has been going on, that is to do with the Mount Kenya region. Several leaders met on Saturday in Meru County, including Governor Lee Kinyanjui, and decided that the region will not be divided into Mount Kenya West or East, but they will make a decision when the time comes on how to forge ahead in the politics of the country. They're looking at the more than 5.3 million registered voters as of the statistics of 2017. Listen to what the leader said.
Sisi tutaenda ground. Kila mtu ground kwake. Door to door. Turudishe watu wetu katika ile njia.
Ate foreigners ndio wanakuja kutuambia ate kuna tofauti ya Meru na Mkikuyu na Muembu, Mudharaka. Hata wanatuambia sasa mtu wa Kirinyaga ni kando, wanatuambia wa Nyeri ni kando. Wasahau vile walisahau kunyonya. Kwa sababu sisi kama mlima tunashikana tukiwa kitu kimoja.
Kama tutakaa kitu kimoja, hatuwezi kuwa kitu kimoja kama tutakuwa huku huyu wako pande ile, mwingine kule, mwingine kule. Lazima tutakuwa na chombo moja.
Consolidate our numbers and negotiate as one team. That we shall not have north or east or northeast and southeast and south and whatever.
If we don't sit down and come up with the agenda for our region, we will be wasted and will be forgotten for the next 50 years.
Wangapi wanataka tujipange jameni? Tujipange ndio tuweze kuvuka tukiwa pamoja. Na hii maneno ya Eastern, sijui Mount Kenya na Western inatoka wapi?
All right, and those are the leaders that spoke there. They're coming from 10 counties of Mount Kenya region, just to list them, like Kipia, Nakuru, Embu, Meru, Tharaka Nithi, Kirinyaga, Nyeri, Murang'a, Kiambu. There's one I'm missing, but it's also included there. There are 10 counties. Nakuru County may be arguable because it's a cosmopolitan county, but Senator Mora, you come from the region, and there appears to be a contestation that a foreigner has infiltrated into the region. What are your reflections and how, especially because the region has consistently voted for one of their own, as far as 1992 when there was Moi Kibaki and Matiba, 1997 when there was Kibaki, 2002 when there was Kibaki and Uhuru, then 2007, 2013 and 17. And now it appears something is changing. Has it really changed?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. I think just before I get into that, because it's important to say this, we have a serious economic agenda for this country in the bottom-up approach, and fiscal discipline is extremely important. What we don't have in this country is the follow-through to ensure that we implement what we have said. Because for the last 4 years, when Sifuna and his groups invaded our bedroom, we've just been speaking about the BBI, and yet the Kiambaa by-election.
But he also spoke about BBI, Senator Mora.
No,
he was there to bomb us.
No. I disagreed. I disagreed with it. I disagreed with it because of the mockery in which it made out of the people
but
that
you supported it
I have
at some point, remember?
No, I didn't support it to a certain extent because when the draft came out, it had serious ingredients. I was part of the negotiations, but those things were never carried through. So I do not take its responsibility because when you look at it as a consensus of many interests, it looks good. But when you look at it holistically, it's a mongrel. And let me say this, that Kiambaa has also taught us that the reason why we don't have peaceful transition from one election to another is because people refuse to accept results. But yet in Kiambaa, people accepted, and they are going to court. And that is important. At least they don't cause chaos like the Sifuna's party. Let me say this. We do have an opportunity to increase the daily earnings of individuals from the current 200 to 300 shillings to about 400 to 600. And if you are to do that alone, you would actually improve on our GDP by 4.5 trillion, up to almost 5 trillion. And that in itself will actually increase a very good resource base of the economy. And also something to say that they are actually clear ingredients. So this idea of things like we've not thought through, there are things we speak in funerals. Governor Lee, I want to invite you, because Sifuna is very biased because they are joining the conversation now, is that there is the public rhetoric, and there is actually the backroom, drafting, and that we are doing very seriously. The challenge of our politics, though, is this kind of thinking can only be institutionalized in strong political parties. For a party like Jubilee, which had an elected official, out of 47, 41 counties were represented, when it crumbles, and people have spoken extensively, including yourself, that's when you lose that institutional memory.
Okay.
And the follow-through. Let's come now to the issue.
Can you make progress to Mount Kenya region now?
The issue of Mount Kenya region. Now, it was conceived by Sifuna and his cohorts led by Peter Wanyande that if Uhuru was to win elections in 2017, then without a doubt, William Ruto would become the next president. So they came up with a scheme of deconstructing William Ruto and Jubilee. I must say congratulations, you succeeded.
You're welcome.
And that part of it was
You're acknowledging the role.
I am acknowledging it because I knew about it. And the idea was to divide the mountain so that people can follow through. But let me warn you, put Raila Odinga on the ballot. The Central Kenya will vote to a man for William Ruto, I can assure you. And the conversation, just like some people have said, is externalized. It's people who want to ensure that the mountain is divided for their own benefit. Just to correct you, Sam, in 1992, we had two major candidates from the central region, Kibaki and Matiba, or Matiba and Kibaki in that order. But out of the 7 candidates, I think 3 or 4 were from the region, because there was also Mukaru Ng'ang'a and there was David Waweru Ng'ethe, the father of KJ. And every other election, Central Kenya has always produced the highest number of candidates. The only one time the region voted for one single candidate was 1997 under Kibaki, and you can say 2007 and 13. In 2002, the votes were divided 70-30 between Uhuru and Kibaki 70 and Uhuru 30. So the idea of thinking like Central Kenya has always voted to a man for their own, and only one of them is also a fallacy.
I didn't say one. I said one of their own.
Is a fallacy, because we always have more than one candidate. However, out of the many, there is one that is preferred by the majority. Now, this time round, there's a difference. People are changing a conversation from tribe to something bigger and higher, because that's what we were supposed to have achieved post-2017. And that is why we have the hustler nation narrative. You cannot say that the most important aspect of your CV is your tribe. That is very primordial. It's very primitive. We have to have a higher ideal that unites us as Kenyans, because when you are elected as president, much as you have your bedrock support where you come from, Sam, you have to satisfy the needs of that area. But remember, you are the president of the whole country. So it is also very inconceivable to say that today, if we don't elect one of our own, then we are going to suffer, like I see my friend KK saying there. To be honest, most of the projects that we have seen being launched are from Luo Nyanza, in Nyanza province. Actually, our people are saying their businesses have gone down. They have not been able to benefit as much for having a president from their own backyard as they would have thought. So it's actually a misnomer.
All right, Senator, I hear you. Governor Lee Kinyanjui, so what is the agreement? There are those that say that our numbers are too many. We cannot not have a candidate in the election. But then there are those that feel, it's been 3 presidents from the region.
Exactly.
Again from the region. What is the thinking, and what are you negotiating
Thank
over?
you. First, I would want to confirm Nakuru is cosmopolitan, so why am I there? I think that's an important question for me. I think 60% of the people from my county come from that region. And I think naturally, I cannot ignore 60% of my constituency. And if they have issues, if they are restless, it is upon me to ensure that I also address that restlessness, and that's why we're engaged in that conversation. And also to confirm that in previous elections, general elections for that matter, Nakuru has actually never had a minister. And this I want to make it very clear. That it's very important when you're launching big political movements, but immediately they go, the seats go to, you know, Kericho, Uasin Gishu, Kiambu, Muranga, and you're forgotten. So this time round, we have said, where the matter is being decided, we have to be there. From the architecture of the coalitions, we have to be part of that conversation. And you're doing that because it's not just about me as a person. Even the people from, say, the Kalenjin side of my constituency suffer the same fate. They are never getting any appointment. So we must be part of the conversations. Secondly, I just want to confirm that the basic unit of political analysis in Kenya is the ethnic blocks. And when we don't say that with apology, I know there is an ideal position, but if our brother Maora believes in what he's saying, we encourage him to go and vie in Ukambani so that he can prove to us that it doesn't matter where you come from, you can win. Let him go to Samburu and win that parliamentary seat, then we'll believe
the
in his
hustlers there give him the seat.
You know? So I think we need to agree, really. The basis of politics also, it depends.
What about Junet Mohammed?
Okay.
Allow governor to finish.
There are the few exceptions here and there, but the basic unit, is that. And that's why you find it is very rare for you to tell me that you have a presidential candidate whose base is different from where he comes from. I would want to hear one day that Kalonzo's base is in Nyanza. Or maybe our deputy president, that his base, for example, is going to be Coast. So it is true. There's a very big connection between the ethnic blocks and the people who they follow. This has actually...
Governor, they said that the ground has shifted. What are you negotiating over?
We will deal with that. So the first point we want to say is that there is a direct connection. So therefore, if a particular unit or block of people feel they are not represented and they are not part of a conversation, then whatever configuration you come with, they will feel alienated. You have seen, for example, One Kenya conversations, talks here in Nairobi. There's nobody from the Mount Kenya region. So how do you expect whatever outcomes they will have, the people of that region to feel represented? So I think all you're saying is that just like any region, Coast has its issues, so they are on the table when discussions are being made. Northeastern and all these other places, they are part of the conversation. So I would want somebody to explain to me how the people of Central Kenya, now that they're not going for presidency, they have zero interest. They're in business. They have people all over. Actually, the community with the highest number of people outside their ancestral home is actually Central Kenya. The diaspora is actually bigger than the people who are actually in those places. So what is their safety? What is their security? How is their businesses? How are their businesses going to be protected as we move forward? So these are the conversations we want. And we also realize that in the hype for elections, a lot of things remain unaddressed. So we would want a coherent conversation with clear undertakings. And I want to confirm that even in 2013, whatever alliances were formed were based on a sit-down and agreements on this is how we want, this is what we expect, we do this, you do this to us. That's a conversation we want. And it cannot happen if there is no structure.
So what are you looking for? What position?
Okay, the point is this. As long as a community has no presidential candidate, how do you unite the people? So first, we cannot outlaw people who want to vie. And I want to confirm to you that even those who are vying today started many years ago. Some came number 1, came number 3, came number 4. Some won first time, although I'm yet to see that person, by the way. All those that have won have vied severally, okay? Except, of course, the first president. So I think all we are trying to say as we move forward, the region has its interests. We have our sons and daughters who, if they're interested, let them vie for it, let them tell us what they have. So I don't think it is possible for us to say nobody will vie from the region. But our interest will remain first. Our people within that region, those who are outside, including the 60% who are in Nakuru, and that their interests come first.
Honorable Coach, there's a question I raised with Senator Mora. He didn't respond. I asked about if UDA is seeking to form any alliances with major political parties in the country, because we've had the Deputy President saying that you're going to form alliances with the hustlers. Are there so many to the extent that you will not require any negotiation of leaders outside UDA in the next election? Knowing what you're facing in Mount Kenya?
I am not an authority in UDA, but I can say any serious political party cannot rule out negotiations. All you need to win an election, presidential election, are numbers. If that numbers are going to be provided by agreeing with other political parties, agreeing with individuals, so be it. That is my thinking, and I'm very open with that. But let me come to the issue of the mountain. I don't come from the mountain, but I think I have one or two. Yesterday, I spent a better part of my day with Senator Maura in Olkalau, Rurie, and we finished our last meeting around 8 p.m. at Flyover. We even had our dinner somewhere between the way. Mount Kenya is taken from what I saw. And I'm at pain also to understand why Governor Lee Kinyanjui seems to be speaking for Mount Kenya, yet he comes from my region. He should decide whether he wants to be in central Kenya or he wants to be a governor in Nakuru County, because he's saying 60% of his population of Nakuru County come from central Kenya. There are enough leaders in central Kenya to speak for issues of central Kenya. I've received a lot of messages, Governor Lee, of people who feel dissatisfied that you've refused to associate with the people from Rift Valley, and it pains me also when I come from the region and you seem to have profiled communities within the region. Stick to Rift Valley, let us pick the issues of Nakuru County. The matter of mountain is not about dividing the mountain. The mountain is not discussed in hotel lobbies or in some university colleges. The mountain discussion is being done outside with the people. What I saw yesterday, all the way, in fact, I'm told that somewhere in Jambini or somewhere, Musalia Mudavadi's convoy was ahead of us, and they had to ask him to leave immediately because there's another team that they were really waiting for, and he's distracting them from the team that was coming. Really? It is not, the mountain is not about, let me tell you, and for once, and that is why I really want as young people, we disassociate from this thinking that, you know, if I come from Mount Kenya, it has to be someone from Mount Kenya. Last general election, we actually, Uhuru Kenyatta got even more votes at some stations from my backyard than what he got in central Kenya, because we must debunk the idea that you must come from a particular community and a president must come from your community for you to benefit.
What do you mean with that? From the analysis of 2017 election, President Kenyatta got about 4.079 million votes from the 10 counties of Mount Kenya.
Kericho County gave him 99%.
Just hold on, 4.079.
Yeah.
From Rift Valley, leaving out Nakuru and Laikipia, it was 1.95 million.
Yeah, I will speak for my county. He got 99% of the votes cast. That is really high for a presidential candidate who is not from my region, if I was to speak that way, like Governor Kinyanjui is saying. So I think for once, what Central Kenya is saying is that we have a president in office, we have a governor in office, we have ministers in office. I have seen Peter Munya there. He's a minister in office, but he's promising heaven sometime next year because they want to unite, yet he's in government now.
Okay.
So if you're in a strategic position now, why we have a problem even now in Central Kenya is because the people have suffered. People do not have money. Milk prices have still continue to be very poor, yet they have a president in office. We've had banning of, I don't know, what is it called, contraband, and continued downfall of the economic situation in Central Kenya, yet they have a president in office. That is why they are saying it doesn't matter.
We need to wind up on this, but Governor Lee, you will have your final word, but SG Sifuna, so reflecting on this and knowing the importance of numbers and regions, so what do you see happening in Central Kenya and the role it plays in the 2022 election?
Yeah, honestly, you cannot ignore such a big constituency given their numbers. We acknowledge that as a party we have had difficulty penetrating the region in past elections, and it is not for lack of trying. You can see my brother here says that Central is taken, but as he's saying Central is taken, he also told us that they don't even have an economic plan for them. He said they were still writing it. These people have no plan, Sam. The people of Central, if by, you know, common consensus here, interested about how they can be able to do business, a government that provides an environment. He is a member of parliament. Many of the punitive measures that have befallen our brothers who are in business were passed in your house when you had those
ODM
committees that you're talking about. Just a minute.
And they're messed up.
Mheshimiwa, you like to point fingers at the president, but yet the bulk of the work is done in those committees that you don't want to attend because they are small committees. You should have passed legislation. These things came through Parliament. The taxation you're talking about, the banning of contraband, all of those things that you're talking about are things you're in a position to do something about. So they tell us, they pontificate every day that, oh, sisi tumejipanga, tuko tayari, tunangoja, nyinyi mjipange. He has no deputy because it is another headache and he knows he has no plan. So how has Mount Kenya been taken? It has been taken by rhetoric. It has been taken by that same hate messaging that has been going on within certain regions about, you know, vilification of individual politicians and saying these people are bad and so on and so forth. I saw him, the deputy president, saying, oh, Jubilee has been auctioned to ODM and it has been sold to us.
Which is true.
The president, who's the party leader of Jubilee, unless you people have changed, has told us the cause of the problem in Jubilee. He told us very clearly at Bomas that it is his restless deputy who, instead of in a race that you need to wait for the baton, went back and tried to grab the baton from him. That is the cause of the problem. Even when you say those people have sold Jubilee to ODM, he has given his consent for the discussions that we are having about a possible coalition with Jubilee as the party leader of Jubilee. So it is called shadow boxing. They are unable to, you know, come up with the courage required to take on their party leader. Now they create a scapegoat in ODM and say ODM has joined and stopped the programs we had. Mwaura here wants to run away from the BBI. Mwaura's ideas made its way into the final document. I remember you leading.
They didn't.
They did, Mwaura.
They didn't.
When you were leading a group of persons with disability.
they didn't.
We may not agree on whether they did or they didn't.
They are there in the document.
They didn't. That one I can say.
So you can't run away from it.
NSG, that's fine.
Okay,
Governor Lee, you have less than 30 seconds to make a final remark.
Okay, so thank you. I just want to confirm that I don't speak for the Mount Kenya region, but like I said, a good chunk of my people come from there. So interest within that region will always be there. And also when the people from the other side of the Rift Valley are meeting, my deputy governor is part of that meeting because this is about interest and we have no apology. But I also want to confirm there has been a deliberate attempt to radicalize people in the central Kenya region. If you talk of poverty and employment, I don't think it is specifically unique to only one region.
Yeah.
If you're saying there's no employment, I would want somebody to explain to me how it is only a central Kenya issue. So I think constant negative messaging has run throughout for the last 4 years. And I'm also surprised that Koech is an expert on how our people think and vote. I want to assure him that this is just a warm-up. When it comes to actual issues, people sit down, look at their interests, and have said, we are not allergic to any coalition with progressive people who help us to move beyond where we want to be, who can help us bring bread and butter to our people. And then lastly also, is to confirm that the BBI had the magic bullet for the problems you're having. The average bursary I give in my own county is 3,000 to 4,000. Mwaura here, who does not want to hear anything about the BBI, he comes from a constituency that is actually the highest in the whole country. And the bursaries we give there is 5,000 to 10,000. In other parts of the country, they're doing up to 100,000, educating their kids outside. Those kids who cannot pursue their education later become the hopeless, the guys who get into alcoholism. They are there in the mtaa, have nothing to do, and we now continue and perpetuate hopelessness. So I think we need also to be honest.
Okay.
And I think for now we would encourage, as we go towards the next election, whichever coalition is going to win is going to be running the whole country. So can we have honest and sober conversations without an attempt just to politic?
All right, as you take a look at the feedback, Dr. Goa Moja, if only leaders were championing for development like politics, we would be far as a nation. People are after safeguarding their own interests. Hashtag DAYBREAK. Ola Willis, bottom-up approach is the transition from a politics of lobbyists and money to a community-based politics of engagement, unlike what the UDA is doing, which is tokenism and Harambes. Please engage the bottoms, not tokening them. Okay. Mutava Japet. Hustler should get back to board and educate its foot soldiers about the so-called bottoms-up and how it will be brought to reality, because what they are giving us is just stories. It sounds good, but unexplainable. Mbaya Kendi, Kenyans don't need Harambes, Kenyans need effective service delivery, telling us how they'll take money from infrastructure to allocate it to Mwananchi's dam. Are we going to have do-it-yourself infrastructures? Well, I don't know what that means. Nelson Koech, you said that Kericho County voted 99%. I looked at the figures. It was 92% for President Kenyatta. Kiambu County voted 92.5% for Uhuru Kenyatta. Murang'a County voted 97% for Uhuru Kenyatta.
That was an error, sorry.
Okay. I like that you fact-check people on your show.
But even that 92% is
that's fine. I mean, it's okay. 2017 is behind us. Yeah. 2022 is ahead of us. And Mwananchi, tafadhali, it's your turn. Listen to the leaders, make your choice. Thank you so much, Nelson Koech, Governor Lee Kinyanjui, SG Sifuna, and
keep doing
Senator.
that. Keep checking what people are telling you on this
show.
Bye.
You can buy breakfast. Anyway, next time.